Hey guys, and welcome to a slightly late episode of Let's Max Warframe. Apologies for the lateness of this, however while making the video I managed to fall asleep in my chair and sleep for the next 18 hours, so I guess I needed that. However, today we're going to be taking a look at a weapon I've seen requested on a number of videos recently, the Tenno automatic crossbow, the Attica. So the Attica is a clan tech research weapon that can be found in the Tenno lab in the dojo. Now normally this would make it an expensive weapon to build. However, aside from the formula that you need to use in the construction of it, it's really not that expensive. So because it's a cheap build, that's going to make it not very good, right? Well, it's not as simple as that. With a base damage of 125.1, putting it firmly in the top end of the weapons on damage done, with the majority 93.8 coming in the form of puncture, 25 as slash, and 6.3 as impact damage. Now I'm not sure what role these numbers adding up to 0.1 actually bring to a weapon, but oh well, we have another one. Other numbers that aren't quite so random are a pretty decent critical chance of 20%, a fairly average 10% status chance, absolute pinpoint accuracy when aiming down the sights, a decent magazine size of 16, meaning that it has extremely good ammo economy, plus punch through on each and every bolt it fires. So right now it's looking pretty good for the Attica. Well, I mean, it does have some pretty notable downsides. Although it has a pretty good critical chance of 20%, it does have a below average 150% critical damage multiplier, which really does limit the damage output of the weapon. Further to that, with a magazine size of 16, you're going to be reloading quite a bit. So that reload at 2.8 seconds can feel rather long in the middle of a firefight. But then the weapon has a reasonably low rate of fire anyway, so it's kind of mitigated by the weapon itself to some extent. However, the major downside to this weapon is it has a lot of recoil. The Attica kicks like a mule when firing on full auto, and although the recoil can be managed through playstyle or even mods, it is something that does limit the weapon, since putting accurate fire down and landing headshots while on full auto is not something that's really realistic. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Attica. Now it does come with a V polarity as standard, however we're going to add another 5 former to the weapon, which is going to be another 3 Vs and 2 dashes. And we've got a whole bunch of mods that are going to remain the same between all 3 of our builds. We've got serration for damage, split chamber for multi-shot, heavy caliber, which is going to further increase the damage, but because of the really high accuracy of the weapon, the accuracy loss, I mean, it is noticed but not really very much. We've got point strike for crit chance and vital sense for the crit damage. Now the other mod I've got on here is I've got vial acceleration, which is going to increase the fire rate of the weapon. The fire rate is quite slow as standard, so I do like to put vial acceleration on there. Now, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things you could do with this slot, as I will explain a little bit later in the video, such as recoil reduction or even primed fast hands. However, for our Grineer build, we're going to go with the heaviest Grineer, so we're going with Hellfire and Stormbringer for radiation. Against Corpus, to deal with the shields, we're going with Cryo Rounds and Stormbringer for magnetic. And in the Void, we can go with Stormbringer and Infected Clip for that corrosive damage. And if you're running the corrosive projection build, then you can switch out Stormbringer for Cryo Rounds, which will bring up viral damage. And these 3 builds will do you very well against all 3 of the factions. So on to my recommendation as to whether I feel it's worth the time, effort and resources you need to max it. And the answer to that is yes, I really do think it is. The weapon itself with its high base damage hits extremely hard. However, when modded properly, it crits roughly 50% of the time, and although the crit damage multiplier is fairly low, the high base damage makes up for that. Now I know the weapon has a decent amount of recoil, however this can be managed either in your playstyle or the use of other mods. Now there are a couple of things you could change on the Attica build for sort of personal preference. You could put primed fast hands on there to drop the reload down, stabilizer to reduce the recoil, a third elemental if you don't like the extra fire rate, or probably the most fun mod for the Attica, Thunderbolt. Now there's a reason that I haven't talked about it until now. And that's because of the fact that although Thunderbolt is amusing, and when used by Mirage it can be a ton of fun, it's really not the most effective way of applying damage with this weapon. Don't get me wrong, it's a blast, I mean pun intended. But when maxing the weapon to take it as far as you can, it drops off far too quickly for it to be of any use, as the enemy levels increase. At low levels, it can be absolutely amazing and mow down a ton of units in no time at all, and it's always really funny to be spamming explosions everywhere. But the problem is, as the enemies get higher and their armor gets higher, the flat rate of damage that Thunderbolt does really gets reduced by the armor, and the ability to blow yourself up with the own damage from Thunderbolt really is always a present danger. Now, while there are definitely some downsides to the Attica, I've really enjoyed playing with it recently, and it's even become my weapon of choice for my Spy 2.0 missions. I like the design of the weapon and the way it plays, so do I think it's worth it? Absolutely yes it is. I think it's a fantastic addition to any arsenal. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.